What is good, everybody? Hello, hello. Welcome back. We have a Momentum Monday word today, and this one is all about finding your uniqueness. So if you are new, Momentum Monday is all about really being intentional with the momentum that you're building. So, momentum can either work for you or against you, right? It can be built towards the positive or towards the negative. And we really do that through building, right? What we're thinking is about, we start feeling some kind of way about, and then we start acting out of that. So, we act out of our attitudes, out of our moods, out of our thoughts, out of our feelings, right? And that can really make or break our day sometime. And the moments that we have. And so if you're very intentional about that and conscious about it, you can build momentum in such a way that it can pull you through the week rather than feeling like you're constantly pushing. Okay, so Momentum Monday is all about giving you wisdom and practical things that you can do to build the momentum that you want to really carry you through your week. So you're not going to have a case of the Mondays. It's actually going to be something that you're excited about and that you can really look forward to. I'm always looking for new ways to build the momentum, to build the life that I get to live, that I am blessed to live, that I have the opportunity to live, right? So today, when we dive in now and talk about finding your uniqueness, this was on my heart because it was very much about, you hear the influencer culture, or you see people maybe that you follow on social media quite a bit creating things, and you might wonder to yourself, how can I be more like that? Or how do I have a voice that's worth even having a platform? If I had a platform, what would I even say on the platform? What even makes me unique? Like when I see all of this, like I don't even want to try because it just seems like so many people are so much further along than me, or just, called to do different things that I could never do. So we do a lot of this heady stuff, right? That really takes us out of the work of defining and really taking ownership of our uniqueness, okay? So whether you're a creative, whether you're a parent, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're somebody that has a dream or has a vision, this is going to be a message for you, just to give you a couple of visual things and then some practical steps that you can work through as well when it comes to this concept of finding your uniqueness, okay? Maybe but this is something that we can always go deeper on, and it can change in different seasons or different stages of our development as well. So, first things first, whenever you are creating a body of work, whenever you are working on a project, whenever you are putting something out into the world, we need to be radically responsible for that. We need to be responsible for who we are, what we believe matters, and the impact that we are about creating in the world. That is our responsibility, okay? So it's nurturing the development of all of those things. That's really what it means to find your uniqueness. It's finding out, who am I, right? Who am I? What makes me up, right? What are the things that I've walked through, the experiences that I've had, the testimonies that I carry? What are the things that I really care about? What are the things that I'm willing to fight for and take a stand for? What are the things that I actually have a unique voice on and perspective in? What are the things that I can really serve and advance and add value to? Who are the people that actually are craving and hungry for what I carry, right? And then what are the ways that I am uniquely equipped to put that out into the world? It doesn't have to look like what anybody's done, but what are the ways that I'm equipped to put that out in the world? And then how am I going to manage and gauge how that's impacting people? How am I going to get feedback? How am I going to check in? How am I going to continue to grow and evolve? These are stages. These are things that we wrestle through, but these are things too that only we really can do that kind of work. We can get feedback, of course, but we need to be doing that work, and that is an evolution. A lot of times, though, people just want to jump to having a platform, or people just want to jump to having the success, but they've never done any of that work about finding the uniqueness on the front end. Okay, so I just wanted to highlight that. Now, a visual, because maybe you've been doing that work, right? And it can actually get kind of discouraging. Well, that's normal. That actually happens for everybody, no matter how celebrated you are, no matter how well known you are. There is a U shape to every journey, to every project, to every creative endeavor, if you will, right? So the very beginning of a U, you can see where you're going. It looks so clear. You're really excited. You're like, oh my goodness, I can't wait. But at that point, you don't really see all the way down into like a canyon, let's say, right? You don't see that whole part. You just see straight ahead to where you're going, okay? Now, as you start going down your journey, that momentum, that excitement, that inspiration that you once had at that very beginning when you saw you going, okay? You start to lose that initial excitement and inspiration as you start trekking down this canyon. And then especially when you get at the very bottom, it's cold, it's murky, you're slogging through some stuff that you didn't expect. You can't see your final destination. You're beginning to have all these questions, right? You start entertaining the questions. You feel like everything's on the line. Even your life is on the line. You are just in a like OMG kind of a moment, right? Where you're just sitting down at the bottom of a canyon, right? However, as you keep going and you start tracking up this canyon again, you start to gain new energy, right? Like there's a new evolved you that's able to dig deep and stretch and keep going. And just trust that like whatever is out ahead of you is still there, right? And it's going to happen and you're going to keep taking steps towards it. So as you keep taking steps now and you're coming back up the mountain, you see your final destination. And when you're over here as well, you're able to look back and see how far you've come and you recognize that it was all worth it. Okay. So when you have that as a visual, it's very empowering, particularly if you are at the bottom of this canyon being like, what is going on? Like, you know, in some instances, did I hear God correctly? Or I thought I had a prophetic word about that. Or, you know, I really felt like this is what I saw, but all these things are happening and my circumstances don't look like anything that I heard or that I saw. Do I keep going, right? Like, what do I do here? When that starts to happen, then you can recognize where you are and just be encouraged to keep going. Okay. So that's a really powerful visual. Now, and hopefully helpful. If you ever wondered, like, why does this keep happening? Well, it happens all the time, right? That's why there's that saying, right? Every next level, right, is going to require a next level version of you. There's got to be a different evolution in order to make your way through another you, okay? There's another version of you that needs to come through. See what I did there? All right, so here are some practical things when it comes to finding your uniqueness. And then I'm going to give you another visual as well. Number one, start answering some prompts and doing these journal exercises and just start getting clear. And give yourself some white space or just some space in general to live your life and not have this pressure of like turning whatever your dream is, whatever your desire is, into some lucrative business. There's an astronomical amount of pressure around anything that you're being inspired or led to do to turn that into something that's like a money-making machine. Maybe that's part of it, but maybe it's not. And particularly at the beginning, give yourself space to just explore the things that make you come alive or that come to you naturally or that really bring out the highest self in you, right? So for example, in my own story, this happens when I'm coaching. It doesn't matter where I am. Like literally, it does not matter where I am. I can draw out the golden people and evoke their greatness and inspire them and encourage them or remind them of something important. And I just have this knack for doing it. I could be at a grocery store. I could be seeing somebody in passing. I could be in many environments and I still see those moments. And I'm given the words to say these people, and I've always done that, right? And then I also have this gift of being resilient. Like I've come through a lot of really tough things in life, which has also allowed me to develop a ton of wisdom, right? Which has also really helped me to give perspective and wisdom to other people as I coach. So I, in my own life, really knew that my uniqueness was found in how I serve. It always involved other people. Okay, so just as an example there for you, but think about that. All right. And the best thing to do here that I found is when you give yourself that space to just explore, it takes the pressure off and then you can start freely answering questions. And I call these prompts, but you could start doing journal prompts, for example, just around yourself, right? What are the experiences that you've had? What are just things that come naturally to you? What do you really get I want to say like the best way to say this. What do you get really passionate about, right? What are causes or things that you like totally have to stand behind? Like you cannot help yourself. You have to stand behind, right? What are those things? So think about what that is for you and then start taking those steps, okay? Now, okay, what's the next thing? Another prompt could be, what are the lessons that you've learned in life? Or who are the type of people that you're drawn to? Who are the people that you really admire their work, right? Start asking yourselves these questions. Who are the people that you're really passionate about serving or helping? And sometimes you can get to this, not always, but sometimes you can get to this by thinking about your younger self, okay? So there's usually a younger self that needed something. And if you were to serve that younger self, what does that look like? Okay. So just start answering prompts. That would be number one. Number two is we often have a tendency of following people that we're inspired by, whether these are mentors that we've read their books, whether these are people on social media, folks that we go to their conferences, you know, people whose quotes on the internet we keep recopying or reposting or whatever, right? We tend to follow role models or influencers, which is great. However, at some point, and this is my next visual, we have to decide if we are going to separate ourselves from the pack or not, okay? When it comes to your own uniqueness, that is an important step of defining your uniqueness, because in the beginning, you often do imitate, right, those that you admire, because they embody characteristics and potential in you that you haven't exactly developed yet. You're not living in the fullness of that, but you see that they are, and you admire that in them, and you're inspired by that. And it actually gives you hope that you can actually lean on that or dive deeper into that, right? So there comes a point, though, where you have to stop imitating these other people and sounding like them and doing what they're doing and formatting and using the style of all these other people and breaking away from the pack and being bold and courageous enough to start literally creating what it is that you are uniquely designed to create. Okay, so a visual for this is like climbing a tree. Okay, I grew up in the country, so I was always like actually climbing trees. So I'm trying to think of a good one. Like the trees in California are pretty epic if you've ever seen those. But just picture a tree that is like a really huge trunk and it's got these like wide branches that are actually strong enough for you to like walk out on. Okay, so it's a pretty big and sturdy tree. Okay, when you are climbing a tree, you are often just imitating what other people around you are doing. But there comes that point where you decide to branch out and do your own thing. This could be even something that you may have practically done in your own life when you first decided to leave home, okay? I know for me, this happened early because I was really, really hungry to start figuring out my life and what I was here for and who I am and what I'm gifted to do. I was so hungry for that. Like I had this like drive in me to figure it out, right? So that happened early for me, but that's a great visual of what that looks like. You have to leave your home. You have to leave your customs. You have to leave what you're most used to being exposed to and expose yourself to a new thing and start testing the water and see what you're capable of. If you only are copying people, so to speak, or imitating people, you don't get to actually experience your potential. Hopefully that makes sense. So that's number two. Number one is start giving yourself space to just explore without pressure. And a great way to do that is by asking yourself and journaling out question prompts. In whatever way you need to collect that information, do it. It could be spirals. It could be voice notes to yourself. It could be videos that you record that nobody else sees. But start collecting that data, okay? Because that's going to inform later when you start branching out. Number two is recognize that it's a normal part of our evolution, especially when we're finding our uniqueness, to start imitating other people. But there comes a point on everyone's journey that you start branching out. Okay, so what does that mean and what does that look like for you, practically speaking? Okay, so in my experience, a lot of times that was trying many, many things and not feeling bad about that and not beating myself up for that. Okay, I have tons of degrees and certifications and many things that I wanted to master and I wanted to learn. And somehow they all formed my uniqueness and my unique journey of being able to serve in the world. Okay. So none of it's good, bad, right, or wrong, but just really pay attention to how that's shaping your course. Okay. And then number 3 is your uniqueness. I want to say always, but I'll say almost always involves other people. Honestly, that's usually how you find it. It's connected to your service and to your capacity to serve, your passion to serve. It's connected to other people. Okay. And because of that, there's different ways to approach relating with your people. We can do a couple things, especially when you look on social media, you can see this, okay? And we call it bullying and haters and all the things, right? But you can provoke people, okay, to try to irritate them, offend them, to get something from them and try to get a response. However, think about your people that you're uniquely called to serve, that you actually have a voice for, okay? We have so much stronger and better interactions when we're actually evoking something from people. We're not provoking them, but we're evoking from them. We're drawing out their potential. We're drawing out their greatness. We're drawing out the gold that's in them. We're not tripping about all the dirt, because dirt's really easy to find, but we're drawing out the gold in people. What is their unique gift? What is their unique capacity? How can they really contribute to this project? How can you add value to them and contribute to them? And think about partnering with them. We're always partnering with people when we're in service to do some sort of thing. So I can give you a couple of examples. When I was in a recovery space, I was partnering with people to really embrace their healing process and not to have judgment about that and not to necessarily prolong it or avoid it, right? But to be in the process and really embrace the process and learn the most that they can from the process, yet still honor themselves in that and really just hold space and help them to do that and hold up unique perspectives that they're finding, but they might miss as they're in the middle of it. That's an example of just being in a recovery space and how I partner with people on their journeys. Okay. If I were just trying to provoke them or push them into something maybe that they weren't ready for, I would argue that I would not be a good fit to do that kind of work, right? So I had a unique gift and anointing to be able to hold space, to be able to encourage, to be able to pour hope into people, to be able to inspire, to be able to hold up wisdom, to be able to draw out from people hidden things that they might be missing and just give that back to them, right? And just like help them to see all of the beauty in what they're experiencing. So a lot of times we can miss that, right? So that's an example. I have probably tons, but I just want to give you an example that you can use to look at your own life. Who are you called to evoke? Okay, not provoke, evoke. Okay, who are you uniquely called to draw out the greatness? Now, I know the tendency might be to say everybody, but I would argue that's not true. There's certain people that you're more moved to partner with than others. Who are those people? All right. Another example might be, I really don't sit well with people that don't know who they are, that don't know what their purpose is, and that don't really know how to master their impact, right? I am so moved to help people on that journey. So moved, because I have been in a powerless, voiceless, unworthiness, like really sort of naive place, right? That's totally disempowered. I've been in a very disempowered place and lived years in that space. And I did a lot of work to start learning how to communicate effectively and learning the impacts of our communication, or how to express ourselves well, or how to really connect well with other people, or to be able to share authentically and in safe ways with healthy boundaries. Like, there's so much work that is inner work that I just did not see a lot of mastery around, and a lot of role models embodying and doing that kind of work in the world. So because of that, that journey was hard. It's like many years in a canyon, right? But as you do that work and you go through it on your own, you have so much to give. And the people that are hungry for it, it's so rewarding to partner with those people. So think about that for you. Who do you want to evoke? Who are you uniquely qualified to evoke versus just provoke people? Okay. In the world right now, we live with a lot of people just trying to provoke people on whatever they can think of. Okay. This could be diet. It could be your skin color. It could be where you live. It could be so many things, right? But think about, who do you want to evoke? Who are you uniquely qualified to evoke and to draw out the greatness from? And who are you just trying to provoke? Pay attention to that, okay? Then, lastly here, when we think about finding your uniqueness, you've got to have a way and a measure for you to be making decisions that help you stay focused on what that is. Because again, when you think about that U shape, there's many opportunities to get distracted. There's many opportunity to build the world's way. I really, in my work, compare the world's way to God's way. There's a distinct difference. You really can't even compare. But that's important, depending on how you want to build and the experience that you want to have and the experiences that you want to create and the impact that you want to create, right? Totally different depending on how you're building. So it's really important to have a way that you qualify your decision making, whether that's who you work with, whether that's what your core values are, what your mission is, and how you're going to work, what you're going to do, what you're not going to do, how you hold commitments, what you say no to. It's really important to have your own framework for how you show up. What are your standards when it comes to your uniqueness? What are your standards when it comes to how you're going to operate and partner with other people? What does that look like? And being clear about that so that you don't give into the temptation to get distracted or to get overwhelmed or to build it this way because that's what you should do or that's how successful people do it, right? You won't be tempted to listen to that kind of stuff when you have your own framework for really protecting and guarding and stewarding your uniqueness. Some examples are, how do you take time off? This is something that you need to establish from the very beginning, right? If you're somebody that takes too much time off, maybe it's how do you structure your time, okay? But some people, a lot of times I work with a lot of the doers, so I'll speak from that space. But a lot of times when you're just doing and like hustling and creating just in go mode, you don't turn off. And you need to have hobbies. You need to have things that you enjoy. You need to have ways that you turn down. Kind of like when you're at a hotel and they have a turn down service, right? Like you have to have a way to transition yourself out of work mode so that you know when it's getting to that level that's too intense and you got to bring yourself down, okay? Because it's when you're able to reflect, when you're able to be still, when you're able to breathe, when you're able to step back, that you can really process and reflect differently and bring full value to the work that you're creating in the world. So that's really important to have a way that you take breaks and that you refresh and refuel, whatever that is for you. This could be spending time with God. You know, this usually that's the answer to most things in life, but find what those things are. When it comes to decision making, right, I love following the biblical principle here. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. What are you going to say yes to? What are you going to say no to? Right? When conflicts come up, how are you going to know how to handle that? Right? When it comes to who you surround yourself with, what are the qualities of people that you want to have around you? Right? When it comes to managing your impact, what are the ways that you're going to do that? What is your position on receiving feedback, whether that's positive or negative, constructive or destructive, right? Like what is going to be your position when it comes to that? Are you going to read it all? Are there going to be few people that you get sound and wise counsel from? What is that going to look like for you? How are you going to keep yourself accountable, right? Is that hiring a coach? Is that, working with a therapist when you have inner things that you want to work out? Is that letting a select group of people, sort of like a board of advisors, work with you and be invested in what you're building? What does that look like? But actually sitting back and coming up with the framework for how you're going to make decisions, for how you're going to operate, whether those are mission, core values, operating procedures, just like you would do for a business or an organization. You've got to be able to do that for you and how you're going to show up and steward your uniqueness. Are there some places that you're going to go and other places that you're not going to go? Are there some activities that you can do and other things that you that you can't do anymore. Maybe in one season you could, but that's no longer fitting and suitable for where you're going. Think about that, right? So take that canyon example again. And let's say your diet, if you're not taking care of your body, there's no way you can make your way through a canyon. If you're not drinking your water, if you're not eating the foods that actually energize your body, if you're just eating things that are tearing down your system and really hard to digest, if you're dehydrated, you just can't operate effectively. So it's the same thing when it comes to ourselves. We have to be very aware of our mental health, emotional health, spiritual health, relational health, right? Soul health, right? All aspects of who we are. We can't leave it to just one, right? Physical health. When we are thinking about stewarding our uniqueness well and really managing the impact, it's both internal and external. Okay. And so another way that I view this is when it comes to impact, the goal, the intention is to multiply. I don't want to do things, although I build and create for the one, I desire for that one to have the capacity for things to be so simply presented that they have the capacity to multiply that in their life, right? And they can take that to more. So I have a desire to multiply. The word of God tells us to multiply, right? Be fruitful and multiply. So I want to bear good fruit, which is taking care of my inner life, right? And making sure that I'm producing the fruit of the Spirit in my own life, right? And really testing myself to show myself approved. But it's also multiplying whatever God has put in my hands, my gifts, my talents, my abilities, my education, my certifications, my experiences, my testimonies, the breakthrough, literally the resources, whatever it is, being able to multiply that. So for example, I shared this in a post. This was kind of wild. I have 2 books coming out this month, which is wild and so exciting. And it's been so much work. It's very much resembled this U shape that I'm talking about. And it's just really interesting to reflect on how I went from never even thinking that I could write to now many books later, right? Wild. And that was never part of the journey or the vision or the path, right? But it was from doing these things that I'm sharing with you. So at any rate, Facebook will tell you like your memories and things. And I normally don't share those. I normally don't even know how they pop up. I don't know if I always see them. I don't know how it happens, right? But literally the past couple days, I had one pop up that was a book launch from 3 years ago. And I was like, oh my gosh, how wild that it was the same month that I had a book launch 3 years ago. And now I'm not only publishing another book, but 2. Right? Like wild. So multiplied what I was able to do. And then the very next day, there was another book launch from 4 years ago. So literally, I guess how many years is this? Like 6 years over the course of, I think it was actually 5 years. Over the course of 5 years, there were 5 of the course of, so 4 years ago and 3 years ago. So the course technically of 4 years, over 4 years, I've written 5 books, right? And I've multiplied one concept and one idea, and then I kept multiplying the work and the work ethic and where God was taking that idea and the strategies and the different things that evolved from that. I continue to pursue more education. I continue to have a ton of life experiences. I continue to serve. I continue to grow. And I had more and more content that I was able to multiply. Okay. From being faithful with one, God gave me more. With me? Hopefully I'm making that clear, but it was just wild to sit with, because I remember, for context, if you find yourself in this position, that when God first gave me my very first book to write, I thought writing was punishment. It was not something that I remotely wanted to do anywhere in my being. I didn't think I'd be good at it. I didn't have a grid for it. I didn't know how it worked, right? But all I could do in that season was be obedient. That was the thing I was committed to do. I had just surrendered to God and said, whatever you want me to do in this season, I'm going to do it. Like this time, I'm going to build it around you. And what I was given was this writing project to steward. And I'm like, no kidding. Right? And so I was faithful in that and had that book launch that showed up on my timeline. And I had no idea if anybody would show up. I had no idea what God was going to do with that book. I had no idea. All I was set on was that I'm going to be faithful of writing this book, or whatever God wants to do, he can touch it and do that. But I'm going to be obedient to this process, right? And sure enough, there was more. that followed after that followed a similar formula of this you. I still started at the beginning, saw where I was going, right? But years were involved in this process. And as I was doing the process, I went down into this canyon, was like, can I even do this? Nothing is happening. This is just really hard. I don't think so. Like, did I really hear God? Am I sure? Right? And then I started coming up and it got clear again. And then I was able to see how far God brought me. With me? So hopefully that's helpful to somebody. And it might not be writing. And like, this is only one thing, right? It could be your work and what God has done in your work. I've got stories on that. It could be with your business. It could be with your family and your relationships. It could be with you personally. It could be with your kids. Like, it's just really important to be tracking your uniqueness and how, in this case, God has developed that, or God has continued to reveal that and used you in different ways. Okay. So just a recap. The U shape is normal. Every next level version, right, that you go to, every next level that you go to is going to require a next level version of you. All right. Now, number one, when it comes to finding your uniqueness, right, give yourself space to explore without pressure. Okay. Not everything has to turn into anything. Like, even with that writing project I just shared, if I just wrote it and then did nothing with it, cool, at least I wrote it. Sometimes we just have to write for the sake of writing, if that's your craft, right? Next one is, eventually you're going to come to a point where you've got to separate from the influencers, from the role models, from the people that you follow, so that you're no longer imitating them, but you're actually taking a step out on your uniqueness. Okay, mine happens to be the brand. It happens to be how I show up in the world. It happens to be what I embody and how consistent I am in being that in all my spheres, right? And that's something that I really evolved into and that I continue to evolve into, but it's something that I became very aware of, okay? And that it requires me to constantly be consecrated, okay, or separated from the pack, or have ways that I do that to make sure that I'm not being inundated by everything that's around me. Number three is, think about who you are called to evoke. Otherwise, we end up just provoking people. Okay. And then lastly, come up with your framework, whatever that is for you, for how you're going to operate. What is your mission? Okay. What are your core values? Who are you going to surround yourself by? How are you going to make decisions? What is your time off policy, right? What are your operating procedures for you when it comes to your uniqueness, so that you know when you need a timeout, so that you know when something's not vibing anymore, so that you know how to show up powerfully, boldly, courageously, and make empowering decisions and life choices, right? And so that you know how to surround yourself with folks that can really help you steward your uniqueness and manage your impact and be radically responsible for that. Okay, so hopefully this is a practical way to break that down. I think sometimes when we hear purpose and voice and uniqueness and all these things, are beautiful, but we need practical to walk these things out a lot of the time. So I hope this message blessed you. If it did, make sure that you like it, subscribe to the channel, because I do a lot of videos. However, they're sort of randomly popping up throughout the week. You'll have content, but it's not always a consistent day and time, okay, at this point. So make sure that you subscribe so you can be alerted when a new video is available. And then as far as connecting and getting your hands on these new books, the best place to go is julianapage.com. It's where I share all the information about the mastermind that I run, about coaching, about the books, about all the things. So make sure that you visit julianapage.com. And until next time, guys, stay blessed.